Hello everyone. I'm Ted. And today we will be continuing with Chapter 6. Selection. Let's start. The interview process. Interviewing is an art. It demands a positive frame of mind on part of the interviewers. Interviewees must be treated properly so as to leave a good impression about the company in their minds. HR experts have identified certain steps to be followed while conducting interviews. Preparation. Effective interviews need to be planned, which involves establishing the objectives of the interview and determining the areas and specific questions to be covered. Reviewing the candidate's application and resume, noting areas that are vague or that may show candidates' strengths and weaknesses on which questions could be asked. Keeping the test scores ready, along with interview assessment forms. Selecting the interview method to be followed. Choosing the panel of experts who would interview the candidates, list a number of experts to be called plus the chairman. Identifying a comfortable, private room preferably away from noise and interruptions, neat and clean, well furnished, lighted, and ventilated, where the interview could be held. Reception. The candidate should be properly received and led into the interview room. Greet the candidate with a warm, friendly, greeting smile. As a rule, treat all candidates, even unsolicited drop-ins at your office, courteously, not on humanitarian grounds but because your company's reputation is at stake. Start the interview on time. Information exchange. To gain the confidence of the candidate, start the interview with a cheerful conversation. The information exchange between the interviewer and the interviewee may proceed thus. State the purpose of the interview, how the qualifications are going to be matched with skills needed to handle the job. Give information about the job for which the interviewee is applying. Known as a realistic job preview, such an exercise would be most fruitful when the applicant gets a realistic picture of what he is supposed to do on the job. Begin with open-ended questions where the candidate gets enough freedom to express himself freely instead of yes or no type of responses. Do not put words in the applicant's mouth by asking, "You have worked in a private management institute before, haven't you?" Do not telegraph the desired answer by nodding or smiling when the right answer is given. Do not interrogate the applicant as if the person is a prisoner, and do not be patronizing, sarcastic or ultra-critical. Do not monopolize the conversation, giving very little chance to the applicant to reveal himself. Do not let the applicant dominate the interview by rambling from point to point so you cannot ask all your questions. Establish an interview plan and stick to it. Do not use difficult words to confuse the applicant. Provide information as freely and honestly as possible. Focus on the applicant's education, training, work experience, etc. Find unexplained gaps in the applicant's past work or college record and elicit facts that are not mentioned in the resume. Avoid questions that are not job-related. Listen to the applicant's answers attentively and patiently. And pay attention to nonverbal cues, applicant's facial expressions, gestures, body language, etc. To increase reliability and avoid discrimination, ask the same questions of all applicants for a particular job. Keep careful notes and record facts. Termination. End the interview as happily as it began without creating any awkward situation for the interviewee. Here, avoid communicating through unpleasant gestures such as sitting erect, turning towards the door, glancing at watch or clock, etc. Regardless of the interview performance of the candidate and interviewer's personal opinion, the applicant should not be given any indication of his prospects at this stage. Evaluation. After the interview is over, summarize and record your observations carefully, constructing the report based on responses given by applicant, his behavior, your own observations and the opinions of other experts present during the interview. It is always better to use a standardized evaluation form for this purpose. Moving next. Guidelines for effective interview. Both the interviewer and the interviewee should have respect for established norms and practices for turning the interview into a successful one. The following guidelines aim at running the show in a competent manner. Guidelines for interviewers. Understand the requirements of the job. Interviewers should possess a thorough knowledge of the job and its multifarious requirements. Possess requisite skills, training, and experience. Interviewers should know how to conduct the interview in a dignified manner. Skillful interviewing is an art and, like all other arts, requires training and experience. Look into relevant data carefully. The interviewers should focus attention on whether the candidate in question fits in with job requirements or not. To this end, they must put questions that reveal more about the candidate's traits, aptitude, interest, etc. Examine important factual information before forming an opinion. Before forming an opinion, interviewers should focus attention on A. Reliance of education to the job specifications. B. Reasons for the gap in educational and employment history of the applicant. C. Reasons for choosing special courses in schools and colleges. D. Division or grades obtained and academic achievements, reason for failure. E. Likes and dislikes for each job. F. Information regarding domestic, health, financial and other problems, if any. G. The condition of the job and work the applicant expects. Avoid focusing attention on notorious time wasters. The time of the interview should not be consumed in collecting routine information, which can be conveniently gathered from application blank or verified from the applicant's former employer or from his school, institution, records, and documents, certificates, etc. Look at the forest, not the individual trees. The interview should be diligently delimited, for it is often the only feasible way of eliciting the required information about the candidate, and it enables the interviewers to view the total individual and to appraise his personal appearance, comments, attitudes, mannerisms, motivations, interests, adjustments, temperament, and other personal attributes. Take an objective view and avoid prejudices of all kinds. It is desirable that the decision should be fair and impartial. Bias, prejudices, personal likes and dislikes, preferences and general impression of the candidate should not be allowed to interfere with the process of decision-making. The interviewers should accentuate the positive qualities in a candidate rather than give undue weight to negative ones. Allow the candidate to open up freely. The candidate should be given an opportunity to air his feelings, opinions, and thoughts freely. To this end, a time limit can be set well in advance. Listen, and listen to what others say. An interviewer should avoid too much talking. To elicit requisite information, the interviewer should take the back seat and ask relevant questions. Do not rush to a conclusion too quickly. The interviewer should refrain from passing too quick a judgment before all the relevant facts have been gathered and evaluated. Give courteous and respectful treatment to job applicants. Due respect to all job applicants is a must. To put the candidate at ease, the interviewer should treat all job applicants in a fair and equitable way. Leave a good impression on job applicants. The interviewer, finally, should try to give good impression about himself and of the company he represents. Guidelines for interviewees. Preparation of a resume. The interviewee must be armed with a well-designed resume containing all relevant information such as demographic data, name, permanent address, date of birth, marital status, and telephone number, if any. 2. Career objectives, both for short range, such as staff assistant or labor relations, and long range, e.g., contract negotiator. 3. Educational background and academic achievements. 4. Leadership positions in clubs, athletic teams, students' union, and social organization. V. Previous work experience. Preparation for the interview itself. The applicant should prepare himself fully before attending the interviews. He should study some literature about the company, such as its history and recent annual report, in order to ask specific questions about product, process, goals, or competition. Questions on items that are related to job duties, the reason for joining the organization, should be thoroughly prepared. These questions demonstrate interest in the organization. During the interview, interviewees should be at their best as soon as the interview begins. They must try their best to leave a good impression initially. To make a good impression and accentuate the positive aspect, the interviewee must follow these considerations. I. Appropriate clothing. 2. Good grooming. 3. A firm handshake. 4. The appearance of controlled energy. V. Pertinent humor and readiness to smile. 6. A genuine interest in the employer's operations and alert attention when the interviewer speaks. 7. Pride in past performance. 8. An understanding of the employer's needs and a desire to serve them. 9. The display of sound ideas. X. Ability to take control when employers fall down on the interviewing job. The interviewee should not initiate any discussion on his own. The response should always be in a measured tone, precise and to the point. There is no need to be pompous or turn egoistical. Of course, eye contact is important. Most of the interviewers cannot form an accurate impression traits other than intelligence, personal relations, aptitude, and motivation to work. Therefore, the candidates should emphasize on the latter in the interview. The candidate should try to the interviewer with the impression that he is eager and enthusiastic to do a good job. He should show the interviewer that he is motivated to work. A clear statement of next actions should be obtained before concluding the interview and a follow-up letter from the interviewee acknowledging. Moving next. Some other terms. Medical examination. Certain jobs require physical qualities like clear vision, acute hearing, unusually high stamina, tolerance of arduous working conditions, clear tone of voice, etc. Medical examination reveals whether or not a candidate possesses these qualities. Medical examination can give the following information: whether the applicant is medically suitable for the specific job or not, whether the applicant has health problems or psychological attitudes likely to interfere with work efficiency or future attendance, whether the applicant suffers from bad health which should be corrected before he can work satisfactorily, such as the need for spectacles, whether the applicant's physical measurements are in accordance with job requirements or not. Reference checks. Once the interview and medical examination of the candidate is over, the personnel department will engage in checking references. Candidates are required to give the names of 2 or 3 references in their application forms. These references may be from individuals who are familiar with the candidate's academic achievements, or from the applicant's previous employer, who is well versed with the applicant's job performance, and sometimes from co-workers. Reference checks are taken as a matter of routine and treated casually or omitted entirely in many organizations. But a good reference check, when used sincerely, will fetch useful and reliable information to the organization. Hiring decision. The concerned line manager has to make the final decision now, whether to select or reject a candidate after soliciting the required information through different techniques discussed earlier. The line manager has to take adequate care in taking the final decision because of economic, behavioral, and social implications of the selection decisions. A careless decision of rejecting a candidate would impair the morale of the people and cause them to suspect the selection procedure and the very basis of selection in a particular organization. A true understanding between line managers and HR managers should be established so as to facilitate good selection decisions. After taking the final decision, the organization has to intimate this decision to the successful as well as unsuccessful candidates. The organization sends the appointment order to the successful candidates either immediately or after some time, depending upon its time schedule. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. This video is brought to you by Bookstune. Like this video to encourage us. Share this video to spread the knowledge. And subscribe to this channel for latest update.